As I said before, Amanda is one of our most popular speakers. You can check out her previous presentations on our website, growthzone.com, on the resources section. She is a longtime professional speaker and a membership expert. She teaches engagement, demonstrates engagement, and researches engagement. She started experimenting with virtual engagement long before all of this happened. And this time she's going to be showing us how to engage and create interaction during virtual member meetings. If you would like, and we encourage you to, turn on your camera, get your fingers ready to type, and join me as we participate in this very interactive demonstration.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. Hello, it's so great to see all of your beautiful faces today. I was just paging through everybody's photos, and I see some folks that are just rocking their virtual backgrounds. So Martha's got a very cool forest going on. And there's a few other people. Lorraine, it looks like, I'm not sure that you're actually on the coast of someplace, but it looks like you are, which is lovely. So whether we're seeing your real background or virtual background, it's so great to see all of your faces here. And so thank you for putting your cameras on. Okay, so we're gonna just dive right in. I have a fun question for you. And the first question for you is, if you could go anywhere in the world at just the snap of your fingers, where would you go? But let's make this a little bit more fun because, right, we're in the age of COVID. So you might be thinking, ooh, I don't really want to go anywhere right now. So if you could pick a date, that would be great. So, you know, last year around this time, I really wanted to go to Broadway in New York City. That was totally on my list, but it's not right this very second. So you know, the question is, if you could travel anywhere and when, where and when would it be? So go ahead and head over to the chat and drop in your answers. We're gonna actually be playing with the chat a lot today. So go ahead and go to your bottom nav, find the chat button, open it up, blow it up into a separate bubble so you're seeing the chat next to all of our faces. And let me go see what everybody's saying. So I see Margaret saying Glacier National Park, and Teresa said Fiji and Tahiti. Germany for Oktoberfest, absolutely. That would be so much fun. Ireland in the springtime. There's a lot of people who want to go to Europe. Salem, Mass, fall. So I don't know if you have been there during the fall, but I'm guessing maybe you've been there during the fall for Halloween. It's a pretty special time in Salem. My sister used to go to college there. Amsterdam, Shanghai Disney, that'd be super cool. Alaska cruise. There's so many places you all want to go. One of the things that you can do in Zoom chat is there's sort of this little blob on the right hand side, and you can grab it with your mouse and you can kind of scroll up and down. And so if you want, you know, take a second to scroll up and down and just see if you have any twins, anybody who said the same thing that you said, whether it's Bora Bora or Saskatchewan or Belize or Japan, you know, whatever. Take a look and see if you see any twins, because sometimes it's kind of fun to see who picked the same place as you. And Lisa, who just mentioned New Zealand, I'm with you, Lisa. New Zealand would be so cool. There's so many great places to go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some tips for getting the best experience today. Like I said, we're going to be using the chat, so just pull that out and have that open and available to you. And make sure that you set your chat to go to everybody. One of the tricky things that Zoom can do is if somebody sees you and they send you a private message through the chat, which they can totally do, your message thing, your to, is going to go back to that person as opposed to everybody. So make sure that your chat is set to go to everyone. We want to see what you're saying, and everybody wants to see what you're saying, and we want to read what everybody else is saying. So set that to everyone. The other thing that you want to do to get sort of the best experience here is set everything to gallery view. So there's two kind of settings that you can have. One is speaker view, which only shows me talking, which you do not want that. You want gallery view because you want to see what everybody else is doing. We're going to do some fun interactive things. So head up to your upper right-hand corner if you haven't already, and click gallery view, and what you should see is a whole bunch of little photos side by side, including you and me and a whole bunch of other people. So that'll be really fun for you a little bit later on. Okay, so I've got another question for you. I've been looking for a really good book these days, something that's not too heavy, maybe something that's heartwarming, funny, lighthearted, and I'd love to know what kind of book you would recommend or what book you would recommend. So if you have any books top of mind and you happen to have your book with you, feel free to hold it up next to you. Okay, there's a couple of people that have their books with them. That's awesome. And if you don't worry. Go ahead and type your recommendations into the chat. So let's do that now so we can kind of co-create and capture some of these. Thank you for bringing your books if you had them. If not, type your books into the chat. So for me, this is kind of an oldie but goodie. If any of you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you might remember, for me, it's probably a decade ago since I read this book by Doug Adams. It's actually a series of books by Doug Adams. He talked about the starship Titanic. And with a name Titanic, you can only imagine what happens to this spacecraft. But it's hilarious. And actually, it was Terry Jones read about that in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I imagine he called up Douglas Adams and said, hey, I think there's a story here about the starship Titanic. Can I write that story? And Doug Adams said yes, and he was off and running. So this is a whole bunch of silly fun if you're looking for something super lighthearted. Let's see what you've all been saying. So The Tipping Point, that's a good one. I'm assuming, Amy, you're talking about Malcolm Gladwell. Absolutely. There's some really good stuff here. So feel free to scroll up and down. Oh, the Book of Awesome. That sounds cool. I cannot, wait to get into your ideas here. You can write, The Princess Bride is another good one. You can offer up any kind of book recommendation you want, authors, whatever you want to throw in here. We're going to be co-creating a lot today. So all of your ideas, I take any and all of your ideas. And don't worry, I'm going to get them all back to you later on. So you can mine this list later. If anybody is writing feverishly right now, don't worry, you're going to get all of this good stuff. So one of the great things about online meetings is the ability to co-create in a way that is not possible during in-person meetings. So if you want to imagine, we've got 131 of you online right this very second. So if 131 of us were in a big meeting room in person right now, and I was on the stage and you were all in the audience and I asked you a question, you couldn't all talk back to me verbally at the same time. It's just not possible. It would be crazy mayhem, right? You can't do that. But online, it's totally possible. So I can ask a question. You can all talk at the same time in the chat. You can see what each other's saying. You can hear what I'm saying. You can talk back and forth to each other. And that's one of the special things about online meetings that you can't do in person. Now, my plan today is to give you 13 steps for energizing your virtual meetings, whether they're board meetings or chapter meetings or meetings with your members. It might be something that you can even pull into one of your virtual conferences. And this is a super experiential session. So I want you to experience the experience. So like I mentioned before, don't feel that you have to feverishly take notes if you don't want to. Now, if you're the kind of person that learns by taking notes, go ahead, that's great. But if you don't want to take those notes, I'm going to be taking notes for you as this presentation goes forward, and I'll get them all back out to you soon, or Amy will get them back out to you soon. So here's the first 3 steps. You probably saw in a confirmation email some important details for today's event, and this is a really great example of step 1, because step 1 is telling participants how to prepare for your meeting. What the dress is, what's expected, what the technology is, just a quick orientation or checklist that helps everybody feel they're most prepared and ready. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to make sure everybody knows how to use the features and tools that you're asking them to use. A lot of us now are kind of Zoom veterans, but one of the things that I'm noticing is there's other platforms that are being used now in addition to Zoom. So some people are using Teams and some people are using, I think, Google Hangouts, and there's all this stuff going on right now where it might take people a moment to get grounded in the platform that they're in. So do a quick, overview of the features that you want people to use and where they are. That'll help them participate. Step 3 is to get into a habit of participation early by giving people the option to interact right away. Now, one way to do this is to pose really timely or interesting questions that everybody can interact with. So Get them talking in the chat right away as soon as you log on. You can have people, say, hey, I'm from Manhattan, or hey, I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania. So that's one quick way just to get people into the habit of interacting. Okay, so one of the things that people tell me is, they feel a little fatigued by Zoom these days, and I just love to get the temperature of how you're all feeling about it. So as you think about all of the the online meetings you're having in Zoom right now, do you get the sense, or do you feel like they're a little exhausting? Let me know in the chat. Do you feel like Zoom is still a little exhausting or not? There's no wrong answers, because we're having all kinds of different experiences right now, but I'd love to know in the chat, do you feel like Zoom is exhausting or not? So I'm seeing a range of answers. I'm seeing, yes, Zoom fatigued, and yes, all zoomed out. And other people are saying, no, I love it. Or sometimes it depends on the meeting, right? Sometimes you get a little exhausted and sometimes not. Teresa said, I fatigue. I can't wait until we're back in person. Zoom is still exhausting still. Yeah, Carla said not really exhausting, but awkward. Absolutely, there's definitely a part of that. And some people are saying they prefer it. Yeah, so, like I said, no wrong answers. There's all kinds of things that are going on today. When I ask this question, most of the time, I would say most people say Zoom is still a little awkward, a little exhausting, maybe a little boring. So let's try to get rid of, those kinds of things and see if we can make it much more fun. Now, part of the reason I think that many of our Zoom meetings are kind of exhausting or boring or awkward is because we're trying to use the exact same agendas that we use in person online, as if in person is exactly the same as online, and they're not. They're two different environments. So the tools and techniques that we can use to raise energy and engagement in an online space are different than what we do in person. So my goal today is to demonstrate to you how we engage and create interaction to boost participation with members during our virtual meetings in Zoom or Zoom-like platform. And I've got a three-part agenda. So the first thing I'm gonna do is show you some ways to interact and energize in a really big group. And when I say big group, I'm talking about 10 people or the 135 we've got right now, or even up to 300 people. Then we're gonna, step two, we're gonna dive into some smaller breakout groups and see if we can kick our engagement up a notch. And then step three, we're going to then reflect on our experience a bit, see what we liked, what we didn't like, what we want to pull forward into some of our meetings. So if this sounds okay with you, just give me a really big thumbs up. All right, okay, I see 2 thumbs up. That's awesome, fantastic. Okay, great. So when I get new groups together, or even close communities together, but on a new platform, I like to talk about our new set of group norms. So for this meeting, if you can put your camera on, if you're comfortable, please do that. I saw in the chat a few people said, I don't have any camera today. So no worries if you can't do that. I do want you to know that if you're hesitant about putting your camera on, but you got kids running around and pets, don't worry about it. That's totally okay with me. When we're in this big group, please do mute, but when we go in the small breakout rooms, to the extent that you can put your camera and microphone on, that's great. If you can't, if you have an older computer and have no access to camera and microphone, we'll talk about how you deal with that. But for now, keep muted and your camera on, and then in the breakout groups, everything will be on. So in a session like this, I feel like it's much more fun to participate. Even though I'm the one who's doing the talking right now, there's tons of ways for you all to participate. So one of the things that I like to talk about is there's a whole host of professionally appropriate gestures that you can make. You can nod, you can shake your head when you don't agree with me. When you really like something, you can give the thumbs up. In one of the entrepreneur meetings I go to all the time, there's one of the kind of the culture in the meeting is that when people hear something that they really love, they do jazz hands. So you can always do jazz hands. That's always fun. You can, even when you're on mute, you can clap for something that somebody said. You can put your hands over your heart if you love it. If you're grateful for them saying something, you can, do the namaste sound. Is there any other you know, professionally appropriate gestures that you've seen in Zoom that you'd really love, go ahead and head on over to the chat and drop those into the chat. Because I'd love to see, you know, what people are seeing and what people are doing. It's really, really interesting. There are a couple of people that are talking about reactions. You can absolutely use your digital reactions. So if you go into the bottom nav, there's a little smiley face. And I wish there was more reactions. Right now there's just hand clapping and there's thumbs up, but you can go ahead and give me a hand clap or thumbs up if you want to try that out. So one of the things about today is there will be time when the chat is moving along so fast, it may be hard to read. And Amy's going to be taking a look at the chat for me and asking me any questions that you've had during this presentation later. So if you have any questions for me, I'd love for you to put them in all caps. That'll flag me and Amy. And I promise we're not going to think that you're yelling, but if you got a question for me, put them in all caps. And chatting is just a great way for you to participate when I'm talking and during any kind of virtual meeting. So encourage your attendees to chat as much as they want. You know, chat anytime. If you hear something that I said that you want to raise up, you can repeat it. That's awesome. You can answer each other's questions. So even if somebody types a question in all caps for me, but you know the answer, go ahead and answer it. One of the things that I like to do when I'm answering a question for somebody is I like to put that little @ symbol and then their name. And if they have a really common last name, I put the first initial of their last name. So in my screen, I see Deborah Healy. And so if Deborah was asking me a question, I would put @Deborah H. And then I can direct my answer back to her. So let's see. Step number 4 is kind of set expectations. Let your participants know that you want them to participate and give them many avenues for doing so, whether it's, you know, physical, they're doing their digital reactions, or physical, you know, reactions, or they're writing in the chat. There's a lot of ways for people to participate. Okay, so I've got another question for you all to answer as a big group. You know, often member meetings fall into a rhythm. There's this formula that we have for how to run them. But now that we're hosting them virtually, this is a really good time to think about our goals. You know, rethink our goals. What do we want? And then build our agendas backwards. So as you think about the next member meeting you're going to be hosting, how would you like your members to feel after attending your next virtual meeting? So go ahead and just brainstorm some words for me. How would you like your members to feel after attending your next virtual meeting? Okay, so I'm seeing energized and time well spent, energized, connected, informed, more energized, excited, empowered, satisfied, I think they added value, a lot more connected, that they got ROI, that they had fun and learned a lot, that they're looking forward to the next one. Absolutely. So I'm seeing, you can go look for your twins too. I'm seeing a lot of people saying engaged and connected and energized. Some really good stuff. Return on membership investment. Absolutely. Satisfied, engaged. What I want you to do is I would like you to, again, you know, grab that little, I don't know, for me, it's a gray blob all the way on the right of my chat bar, scroll up and down and see if there is a word that is not your word that you really like. And then if you have a piece of paper and a marker, go ahead and write that word down on your piece of paper in big block letters if you can. So go ahead, write a word that's not your word on that piece of paper. And when you're ready, hold your word up. So I'm seeing, let's see, Amy had, I think, invigorated, connected, yeah, worthwhile, absolutely. Who else is holding some up? I see some people have written a lot of words: engage, connected, investment, engage, a lot of engage, absolutely. This is fantastic, yeah. Perfect, okay. So you know, one of the things, actually, let me phrase that in terms of step 5. is that you can play with a whole bunch of methods of engagement and you can alternate them. So think about, you know, we do the thumbs up, you can get people to do jazz hands, you can get people to engage in the chat. If you feel like you're wearing chat out, you know, get them to write something on a blank piece of paper, get them to draw something on a blank piece of paper and hold it up. So there's many, many ways that you can get really big groups to engage. And just think about, as you're planning your meetings, how you sort of intersperse all of those different engagement methods to keep it, you know, lively and fun and moving along. Step number 6 is to ask people to interact progressively. What I like to do is, one of the first things that I like to do is ask people to just give me a thumbs up. It breaks the ice. They start getting into this, you know, mode of participating. Then you might want to get them to chat and start chat, you know, easy, you know, just reply with a yes or no, give me one word, give me, you know, tell me the state that you're from or the city you're from, you know, those kinds of things before you're working your way up to something that might be considered a little bit harder. So if you're in a group of, say, 10 people, maybe you've got people engaging in the chat before they're popping off of mute and actually talking into the entire group, you know, verbally. So again, ask people to interact progressively. Step number 7 is to architect ways for people to share something about themselves. So, you know, we all know our elevator speeches, right? Hi, I'm a member engagement, you know, I'm Amanda, I'm a member engagement expert. And we get tired of talking about that part of ourselves, and people sometimes get tired of hearing about it if your members are convening all the time or your chapter's convening all the time. So think about new ways to get them to share something about themselves that's beyond the usual work stuff, you know, something that'll help them show the human part of themselves, like books and travel and adventures, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm kind of curious, as you've been thinking about the virtual meetings you've been having, does it seem harder to talk in big groups online than in person? And again, there's no wrong answers here, but I'd love for you to hit the chat and let me know, has it been harder, does it seem harder to talk in bigger groups online than it is in person? Just type yes or no in the chat. So I'm seeing some people saying yes, harder. A couple of people are saying no, maybe actually half are saying no. Yes, somewhat, sometimes in bigger groups, yes. You know, I think that this question has a lot to do with how well you know the group. You know, if it's your 20-person staff, maybe not so hard, but if it's a bunch of strangers, maybe it's a little bit harder. And I'm seeing some more people, like Tom says, depends on the group and topic. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any blanket answers for every single meeting we're having. But what I can tell you is online, sometimes more natural conversation can flow in smaller groups. So we're going to play around with breakout groups in just a little bit. So, you know, I think that sometimes, especially if you have a membership that's not online a lot, maybe they're not in Zoom a lot, there's some trepidation that people feel when they're speaking on camera. Yeah, you know, you're like on camera, and that seems a little bit scary. So you can employ breakout groups anytime you feel like you have a membership that might be a little resistant to that. So, you know, people who might not be feeling like they're digital natives or might not be using Zoom in their, you know, their everyday professional environment, you know, people who tend to be introverts, you know, all of those folks. And then for the whole universe, I think breakout groups are really, really important because they provide a whole lot of connection and networking. And that's one of the things that we need right now when we're all home and in our digital environments. So just by a show of jazz hands, I would love to know if you've participated in a breakout group before. I just love to get a sense of whether you have. Okay, yeah, so some, not all, but some. Okay, so for those of you who haven't, I hope this is super fun. Okay, so, you know, I think many of you know about the breakout room feature in Zoom, but one pro tip is to keep your groups really small. So if it is a group that knows each other really well, you might want to have, say, oh, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 people in the breakout group. If it is a group that doesn't know each other very well, if it is a group that's going to be talking about something, you know, like a big, meaty, strategic, hairy problem, you might want to keep those group numbers even smaller, 3, 4 people into a group. Today, we're going to set those breakout rooms at around 5 or 6 people each, because I know not all of you have access to cameras and microphones. And so if you are one of those who does not have access to your microphone, go ahead and chat with everybody. And then one person in your group, just take it upon yourself to pop open that chat and look at what that person who doesn't have access to their microphone is doing. Read it out loud to everybody and see if anybody has some comments for that person. And that way you can all engage. Okay, so just in a moment, we're going to be heading to our breakout groups. You may have to hit a button when Amy deploys us. It says join breakout group, but if you don't have to hit that button, that's fine. You'll just go over automatically. If you do see the button, hit join. And we're going to be heading to those breakout rooms for just 6 or 7 minutes. And Zoom typically will give you that 1-minute countdown timer. So you're going to have this time. You'll get you have 1 minute left. If your group is having a great conversation, don't come back to the main room. Stay there. Zoom will automatically, at the end of 1 minute, they'll pull you right back in. Now, when you get to your breakout group, if you can unmute, turn your camera on. And in this small group, what I like to do is take turns sharing. What was one of the most engaging or meaningful things you've seen in an online meeting? So I'm gonna go ahead and drop that into the chat. So what is one of the most engaging or meaningful things that you've seen in an online meeting? Now, this could be a member meeting. It could be a completely different professional meeting, staff meeting, some kind of training you've been on. And I want you to feel free to talk about the personal side of things too. So if you've seen something fun happen in, say, an online yoga class or happy hour, family reunion, or birthday party, talk about that as well. Now, I want you to make sure that everybody gets a turn. It's roughly a little less than a minute each. Feel free to go around the room. And as people are talking, be their cheerleader, practice your professionally appropriate gestures and listen to what everybody's saying. If there's time at the end, you can ask each other questions. Okay, so let's get ready to head to those breakout groups. But before you go, again, the question is, what is one of the most engaging or meaningful things you've seen in an online meeting? Now, if you are stuck for an idea, talk about the most engaging things that you've seen in an in-person meeting and try to figure out if you can adapt that online. Okay, so does everybody know what the question is? Give me a big thumbs up if you do. All right, okay, then I'm gonna see you back here in just 6 or 7 minutes, and I'll let Amy take care of sending you all off now. Have fun. All right, welcome back, everyone. As everybody is filing back in, I'm just gonna pop open all my stuff. There's the chat. I wanna get that back open up and put it into its own little blob so I can see it. Great, so, one of the things that I'd love to do is again, head on over to the chat and type in what you shared in your breakout group. What was one of the most engaging or meaningful things that you've seen online in an online meeting? So again, what was one of the most engaging or meaningful things that you've seen in an online meeting? If you can paraphrase what you said in a minute and just say a sentence or two, I would love to know. I'm seeing people say videos. Ooh, and speed networking. How cool. Gabriel said speed networking event utilizing those breakout rooms. That must have been really interesting. Let's see. Utilizing polls, virtual trade shows. I attended an online funeral. Yeah, absolutely. That would be, you're hearing so much about people figuring out different ways to connect with weddings and birthdays and family reunions and all this stuff. So somebody in our group was talking about dancing too. So cool to see all of this stuff. Okay, so step number 8 is use your breakout groups to get deeper participant interaction when you have really large groups. So I would say, any group of over, say, even 10 or 12 could participate or could benefit from breakout groups, depending on what you want them to participate with. I think it's really great for networking. You can get some deeper connections in that way. You can have new members meet longtime members. It's also great for digging into really deep topics. So if your members are starting to think about, thorny, big, strategic, hairy issues that are tough. There's no immediate answers. You know, stuff that they've really got to sort of think through. Think about longer breakout groups with just a few people in them, and to help them think through some of these topics. You can use breakout groups for, as somebody said, speed networking, but also for brainstorming. You can use them for roundtable discussions. You can even use them for mentoring. So think about the ways that you can incorporate breakout groups into your next member meeting. Step number 9 is think about some alternate ways to debrief from these small teams. Now, if you have a big group and everybody comes back from their breakout groups and you want people to do it the old way that we used to do it in physical meetings, where every group has somebody who shares what the group talked about, you'll find that that doesn't work so well in the virtual space. People tend to sort of tune out a little bit. So think about what you want people to do. You can ask folks to type words or phrases into the chat if it's, you know, if they're just sharing and it's quick, fun stuff. But if they're getting into very involved topics where you're talking about a lot of meaty content, you might want to nominate somebody to be the scribe or their secretary, and give them access to their own Google Doc. And in there, they'll start capturing all of the notes from that breakout group. And then everybody you can combine those Google Docs into, say, you know, an ebook or an archive of the conversation for everybody that attended. And that's a really great way to do that. Okay, so I'm curious, what did you think about those breakout groups? You know, were they fun? You know, did it put you on the spot? What are you thinking? So head on over to the Zoom and just let me know what you thought about those breakout groups. Okay, Erica said they were great, good. Informative, awesome. Yeah, so good. It was fun, nice chatting with others. Yeah, it's a nice way that you know, you can certainly participate with me and each other in this big group, but it's another nice way to participate with a small group. Okay, so I could totally use your recommendations. I'd love to know what binge-worthy TV shows you're watching or have watched that you can recommend, and what platform is it on? So I feel like I've Netflixed myself out. And so, you know, what TV show can you totally recommend? I've been watching Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, and I just found out that they made a movie, which I cannot wait to see. So that's my recommendation. Oh, somebody's watching, Carla's watching This Is Us. Yes, Dead to Me, Yellowstone. I see a lot of people recommending Yellowstone. So I should definitely check that out. Mad Men, Yellowstone, Flashpoint, Elizabeth on Prime. That's interesting. There's also another one that's kind of going, it's a series of shows that's going through her life. It's The Crown. I don't know if you've watched The Crown, but that's another really interesting one. The Last Dance on Netflix. That's interesting. So many cool things. Carol said, love The Crown. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many cool things. This is awesome. You know, you've given me a lot of great suggestions for books, for movies, for ways to be more engaging in my next virtual meeting. And we're doing a lot of co-creating today. And what I want to do, because we're doing so much co-creating today, is I'd love for everybody to give each other a high five. So go ahead and raise your hands. And at the count of 3, we're going to give each other a high five. So 1, 2, 3, high five. All right, everybody. Yeah. Great. So step number 10 is, as the host, you have the ability to set the tone. If it's appropriate, have fun. Step number 11 is kids and fur kids are totally welcome in my book. This is one of those times where, you know, it's hard. A lot of people are stuck at home. One spouse or a partner may be off. And so the kids and all of the pets are home, and it's really hard for people to get on camera. So if it's okay with your membership, make it okay to have kids photobombing or Zoom bombing them. And step number 12 is get creative. You have this whole frame to work with. And a lot of people are at home. So what can you do to help people contribute and feel supportive, and even let people feel really energized? So think about what you can do with folks in their home office, and also in this frame. You can have people stand up and stretch and do a couple of yoga moves, you know, do all kinds of stuff. So here's another one that you may or may not have seen. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look around on your desk or in your space, and I would like you to select something that you think at least somebody else will select. So an item off of your desk that you think somebody else might select, and see if you can drum up a lot of twins. So what item is on your desk that you think a lot of other people are going to select? And at the count of 3, we're going to hold them up, okay? So 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of masks and hand sanitizer and mugs, all right. Earphones and more mugs and some phones, a lot of phones. I'm just scrolling through. Somebody selected pens and scissors and water bottles and frames. Fantastic. Yeah, so drinks of water. Yeah, so a lot of people have played the twins game, and I think everybody held up something that somebody else had selected, so that's awesome. Okay, so let's reflect a little bit on what we've done so far. So you know, we've had, I would say, a fairly interactive meeting, and I'd like to know you know, how do you feel, you know, after you've had this opportunity to participate in a meeting like this? How do you feel? So type your thoughts into the chat. How are you feeling right now? No answer is a wrong answer. Let me see. So there's, people are saying energized, connected, like I didn't waste my time, weary, yep. Happy, energized, more creative, smarter, new ideas. This is fun, inspired, smiling, more interested. Creative. Yeah, so there's a range of thoughts here where people are saying, you know, they're inspired, they got great ideas, time flew by. Yeah, I don't know about you, but Willow, this is always the fastest hour of my life because it goes really fast for me, and I hear that it goes sort of fast for you all. And then for people who are feeling like, oh my gosh, Amanda's going so fast and this is ridiculously crazy, this might not be the right pace for your members, and that is totally okay. I recently worked with a group of plumbers who spend their whole day with their customers on the road and not in Zoom. And they kind of said, hey, you know what, you know, thanks for the 30,000 ideas, but how about you just go with 3? And that is totally okay. So just gauge the temperature of your members and see, you know, how fast or slow they want to go when you're trying all of these different things. Okay. Let's see. Now, remember I told you that you don't have to take notes. I've been taking them for you, and I'm going to combine them all in a big ebook. And Amy and I are going to get them out to you soon. So there's step number 13, and you're going to see that then. So another question for you is, what do you plan to take from this presentation back to your online meetings? I'm curious about, you know, what you plan to take from this presentation back to your online meeting. So is there something that you tried out here that you really like, that you think that you want to take back to your next online meeting? So Stephanie says, engaging questions throughout, breakout groups, doing an icebreaker, participant engagement. This is interesting, Phyllis. I like that you don't have to do PowerPoint. You don't have to do PowerPoint. In fact, you might find in some of your member meetings that PowerPoint just slows that energy down, and you can shake things up every now and then by not doing the PowerPoint. Vary how we can engage, says Martha. Zara says, didn't miss the PowerPoint. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that games people are going to try to take back with them. Yeah, fantastic. Facilitating the responses. Yeah, so sometimes presenters get a little overwhelmed by, you know, and I do too, you know, trying to get through everything that I want to get to, and then dipping into the chat every now and then. And there's no advice I can give you other than just to keep practicing. You know, I would say a year ago, I was less good at sort of multitasking than I am now. Okay, so where are we in time? It looks like we're coming up on Q&A, but before we come up on Q&A, let me just give you some extra pro tips. And again, all of this is going to be in the notes that I'm going to send to you. New members. New members is one of those groups that might be feeling left out right now. When we had, you know, used to have in-person conferences, a lot of associations and member organizations were welcoming new members in a really nice, you know, lovely way. And it might be harder online. So think about how you can welcome your new members in the chat when you see them attending, if it's possible. So if it's possible, when you have your next virtual meeting, you see a name that you don't know, go into the chat. You can, with everybody, you can say, hi, Sue M, welcome, welcome to this meeting, or you could chat to them privately. Also think about allotting time for an icebreaker to promote participation. So, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people in groups that know each other, they want that time to chit chat, to say, hi, Stacy, hi, Roberta, great to see you, Maggie. They want to, a moment just to say, hi, how are you doing? So that icebreaker time also gives your longtime members a chance to say hello to each other and then get down to business. You can also demonstrate to others how to be really active in the chat. So if you have a co-presenter, one of you can be in the chat and doing all of those really interesting chat things, like asking the group questions and answering questions and cheerleading contributors and raising up ideas that they hear that they really like. So there's all different ways to show people how to be great chat contributors. And then the more people see you do it, they're gonna model the same. And then finally, during board meetings especially, so if you've got some board meetings come up and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this virtually? You can investigate some collaborative virtual platforms. So there's one called Miro.com. It's a whiteboarding tool that you can use, and you can, if people are brainstorming, they're shouting ideas at you, you can fill them into Miro, or you can buy a subscription. Everybody can work collaboratively at the same time in Miro, which is really interesting. There's a bunch of online whiteboarding tools that you can use. Miro is the one that I'm most familiar with, and I like. It's Miro.com. I think there's also a mural.com. And Google Docs is super simple, super cheap, but it's one way you can just drop links into Google Docs and get everybody participating in that. If you're looking for energizers, some of the games that I played with you, to keep your group's energy up, check out Playmeo. A colleague of mine owns Playmeo. It's Playmeo.com. Again, I'm going to send you all of these notes later on, but that's another way to look for, these like fun little energizers, fun little games to play online. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes for Q&A. So if you've got a question for me, feel free to drop it into the chat now. And I'm going to ask Amy now if anything came up during the presentation that she wants to ask me, and then I'll also look in here for your questions.
Okay, there are a lot of great questions, and again, whatever we don't get to, we will send to Amanda, and she will include answers in her follow-up post-meeting guide. So that should hopefully go out here in the next few days. Gosh, there's so many great ones. Have you incorporated any background music as people are getting online, or how do you overcome the quiet at the beginning?
I have not, but I have been in a in a meeting that did. If anybody, there is a startup company called Icebreaker. I think it's icebreaker.ca. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. It might be icebreaker.tv or something like that. But the whole idea is that it's a networking platform. And when they were doing their launch, they were piping in music, and it was so fun. It was along the same ideas of, the dance that people were talking about, where people are getting up and dance and they're piping in music. So yes, Lisa said icebreaker.video. Okay, I was totally wrong with that URL, but thank you, Lisa, for answering that. Yeah, I think music is totally cool. And if you can do it, do it. It is a great way to get people, they get engaged, and it's fun, and it raises the energy. The other way to get around that initial silence is to, you can start 5 minutes early and keep letting people in the waiting room while you started at 5 minutes early. So as people come in, there's something in process, but it's super easy for them to catch up. Like when you ask a question a couple of times around, okay, where is everybody calling in from? And where is it what time zone are you in? And where are you? So that's another way to do it, is just, start that meeting quick and kind of have it in process. And there's no downtime.
Oh, I like this one. I'll let Amanda answer it, but my answer is 100% yes. Is it a good idea to have a co-driver on Zoom?
100% yes. Yes, so Amy is taking care of all of the administrative stuff while I am taking care of the presenting stuff. So I can't let people in from the waiting room, and it's hard for me to kick off the breakout rooms and stuff like this. Now, if you have only one staff person, or you're just a volunteer doing this yourself, and you can't get another person to do it, that's totally okay. I have actually done all of it myself. It just goes a little bit slower. But if you've got a big group and you have the resources to have somebody else doing the admin while you present, or you change presenters and you do the admin for each other, that's awesome. It just keeps things moving along a little bit faster.
Okay. A lot of people have asked this, and I think that it's a good group chat question. Has anyone had success, or how do you have success with a virtual reception? Amanda may want to weigh in on that.
Yeah,
But if you want to put something in the chat, we can include that as well.
yes, please do. Anybody who's seen a virtual reception work well, please let me know. So if you had been to ASAE's membership and marketing conference, they did an interesting thing at the end where they had 3 or 4 co-hosts come on, and those 3 or 4 people bantered back and forth together. And then as things were coming up in the chat, so one person was talking and one person was reading the chat, and maybe there are 2 people were answering each other's questions. They were watching the chat, and when somebody raised something really interesting, they'd invite that person on the chat who was in the chat talking about that thing to come up and be on camera with those other 3 or 4 people. And that was really interesting. I really like that. I've also seen people do receptions where they go to breakout groups, other things, conferences where people, they take a break from the learning for 10 minutes so everybody can go get their drink. And when they come back, they, talk a little bit about their drink. I think it depends on size. MNC, I think there was something like 750 people at the reception. So not everybody was on camera. It was just, maybe 4 people at a time. But if you've got, 10 people or 20 people, maybe everybody can be on camera, and maybe the folks who choose to share what they're drinking and chat a little bit will do that.
Okay, we are running close on time. We'll take a couple more questions, but if you all want to log off because you have another Zoom meeting to go to, that's just fine. We will be sending out the recording and the chat. The one question we have here is, and this is another thing people can put into the chat, and Amanda might be able to weigh in. What virtual fundraising have you seen work? So that's a great group question.
That is a great group question.
Yep.
I am going to lob that one back to the group. So what are some fundraising ideas you've seen work? I've not personally been on a lot of fundraising receptions or fundraising events on Zoom. So I'd love to know from you all what works. Can I just answer the one on swag bags?
Please.
Yeah, so there's a couple of people are asking about swag bags. Totally fun. So there's a lot of event hosts that are looking for like the analog version to our in-person events online. And I think these gift boxes that arrive in people's home mailboxes or PO boxes is one really great way to get some really good engagement. So it's a great way for sponsors and former exhibitors to get their names in front of attendees. But it's also just a nice way to, people are getting that present and they got a box to open up and they're super excited about the event. And so there's all kinds of things that event hosts are thinking about creatively, like, putting something in that box that they're going to be holding up later on during the event or using during the event, or, workbooks or workbook pages or note pages or, all of that kinds of stuff that they'll be using during the event. And I really do like the swag bag, or I'm not sure what they're calling them. If it's like a gift box idea that gets mailed to each one of your attendees, but that's super, super cool.
All right, well, we are past the hour here. We appreciate everyone joining us. And of course, we appreciate Amanda taking her time to go over this. It's always interesting and it's actually a lot of fun. And again, everyone, I have some people waving.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.